Hi everyone, welcome back to part 2 of my Sanctum of Domination raid review. This is the last part. I thought I needed to chop the video up into 2 parts because there was quite a lot to talk about and it was getting a little long just for one video. So the next fight in the list is Painsmith Raznal. This is one of my favourite fights from the raid. I'd say it's my second favourite fight. First being the Remnant of Nazal. This fight, once again, as you can see from the footage here, is a platform based fight. This time the platform is square. So there are a couple of interesting mechanics on this fight. One of the most flashy mechanics are the spiked balls that appear and move towards the players on the platform, and they basically cover one whole side, so the team has to work together to focus one of the balls, DPS it down as fast as possible. That ball is then destroyed. You'll probably see it in a clip coming up here, and then the raid can move through the balls. As you can see, it's usually the middle ball that's picked to focus down, because if the whole raid kind of doesn't have good communication, starts attacking different balls, you're going to DPS them unevenly, and you're either going to get knocked back or damaged from the balls. I think that's a cool mechanic, very interesting. There isn't another fight in this raid that I can think of with a mechanic like that, so it's quite unique in that way. As you can see here, this player with the chains around him, that is a debuff. That's very interesting again. You must stay away from other players once you have that chain around you. If you come in contact with them, the players are knocked back, and again you can be knocked back into the spiked balls or knocked back off of the platform, which is quite rage inducing. If there's one person in the raid who doesn't really know what they're doing, they've got the chain around them and then they move into the group of people, knocking the tank away. So the third interesting mechanic is this here, with the spikes kind of come out of the ground in a pattern. There's a safe spot, as you can see, where you can fit through. This version is LFR, so the damage really isn't that much damage on LFR version. On Heroic and Mythic, it's much more important that you avoid the spikes at all costs. You can't damage the boss in this phase. He's hammering an anvil by the looks of it up on this platform up here, so it's literally just a case of run through the maze as fast as possible without hitting the spikes. The last mechanic that I'll mention for this fight is the blue square in the corner that has been marked by our raid here. An axe is thrown, and then or a hammer, it's about to happen here. Black ring around that player, the hammer hits them, and then spikes erupt from that area outwards across the whole platform. So again, and these abilities can stack quite fast. As you can see, the spikes are still coming out here and the spiked balls are moving towards us. So if you're not quick and you're not organised, it can be very stressful. Let's just say the boss itself doesn't do much damage, to be honest. The fight is more about positionals, knowing where you are at all times, and being aware of the fact that you are on a platform and you can quite easily knock your teammates off that platform. So the next boss in the list is, I would say, one of the worst bosses on this raid. It's Guardian of the First Ones. So let me just skip ahead in this footage. This is the Guardian of the First Ones fight. Extremely boring fight, to be honest. It's a huge boss. There are pillars that need to be, it basically builds energy, and there are pillars that need to be either, you have to lead the boss towards the pillars or away from them once there are AoEs basically erupting from the area. There isn't that much to mention about this boss, so I'm not going to spend any time talking about it. extremely boring, and not that much of an interesting fight, if I'm honest. So for the final two bosses, Kel'thuzad and Savannah's Windrunner, I'm not going to show any footage. I don't really want to put, especially the final boss, Sylvanas, I don't want to put any footage in to spoil anything for anyone, because it is tied to the lore and, you know, stuff like that. Anyway, the Kel'thuzad fight is interesting. It's not, again, it's nothing amazing. There is ad phases where part of the raid group has to go up to another level in the phylactery to fight some ads. Then they are joined back down with the rest of the team. There's glacier spikes that need to be DPS down, not all at once, because they do raid wide damage. So if you do them all at the same time, everyone's health goes down in huge chunks one after the other, so it's best to space them out. Once again, that mechanic has been done a million times in World of Warcraft. Nothing new at all, pretty boring. That same mechanic is done in this fight, the Soul Render fight with the chains. Like I said in part 1, if you pull all of the chains at the same time, the raid wide damage is given out at the same time, so you got to space them out. And that sums up this whole raid, really. Reused mechanics, very same architecture within, you know, the areas of the raid. It's all grey, dark steel, hard stone. Personally, I don't think it's that great to look at, you know, visually, the raid. Even the raid bosses aren't brilliant. The Kel'thuzad fight, which is the one I'm currently speaking about, is exactly the same. It's Kel'thuzad, right? Huge lore character. You know, Naxxramas, one of the best raids ever. You know, the last raid of Classic. This version of Kel'thuzad is just nothing special at all. It doesn't hold any weight. It doesn't feel lore heavy. It just feels like another boss fight that they just slapped Kel'thuzad's model in and done the voice acting for it. That's about it. You take him down, nothing interesting really happens. Right, moving on to the last fight, Sylvanas Windrunner. This was hyped up massively. It's Sylvanas, right? One of the biggest and longest standing lore characters in all of Warcraft. You know, she's the Dark Lady. She's a huge part of Warcraft. And, you know, a fan favourite, to be honest. The last fight with her, this one is a huge letdown, if I'm honest. I don't want to be too negative in this video, but I was expecting a lot more. It's basically, you fight her again on just this big wide open platform. There's literally nothing there for the first phase. Then you are teleported over to Oribos. That is the best phase of the fight, the second phase, or maybe the third, I think. And you basically, again, it's platforms. There's like 4 or 5 platforms. People get arrows on them, debuffs. The people with the arrows have to jump to the other platform, let the arrow go off, and then jump back, and then carry on fighting her. Again, what's so great about that? It should have been one of the best fights ever. It's Sylvanas Windrunner. It should have been huge. There should have been mechanics that we've never seen before. You know, it should have been shocking in some way. The most shocking thing about the fight is that it ends when she hits 50% health or 51% health. That's, you know, the race to world first, the mythic version. I think it was Echo, the Echo Guild. You can see on their videos they're kind of DPSing it down, and when the fight ends at 50%, they're all in shock. They don't know what to do. They're like, what's going on? What the hell? So that was quite funny, but that doesn't make it a good boss fight. The mechanics are extremely boring. Phase 2 is basically a chase sequence where you have to just maneuver these bridges that are put up by Thrall and Jaina. and chase her down, and that's it basically. She drops the legendary hunter bow, which is quite cool because I play hunter myself. I haven't got it to drop yet. That's about it. There's a cutscene at the end, obviously, with the jailer, the arbiter. You're in Oribos, which is where the fight ends, which is kind of cool, I guess. But I think most of us can agree Oribos is one of the worst main hub areas of World of Warcraft in years. We spend most of our time in Oribos. Going to Revendreth or Ardenweald or all the other places. And it's just boring as hell. Oribos, it's tiny for one. It's a ring, which makes it a nightmare because you're constantly running around to try and find out which is the flight master this side of the ring or that side of the ring, or where was the vendor that I needed to speak to. It's kind of like confusing and just uninteresting, and that is the way that I would describe the whole raid, Sanctum of Domination. It's not the worst raid. There are a couple of good boss fights. My favourites are this fight here, Solrender Dormazane, and the Remnant of Nazal. But as I mentioned 100 times, those mechanics have been seen millions of times throughout different fights in World of Warcraft over the years. The biggest letdowns in this raid was the Sylvanas fight, the Kel'Thuzad fight, and the Guardian of the first ones. I don't have much to say about them at all. They were just uninteresting. The mechanics were dull. They weren't particularly difficult on heroic, which is usually the level that my guild and I raid at. And the whole lore of the raid didn't seem very impactful to the story of Warcraft. It didn't move it on. It didn't advance the story in any massive way. So, wrapping it up, what would I give it out of 10? I think I mentioned this in the part 1 of the video actually. I will give it a 6.5 out of 10, or a 65 out of 100, whatever way you want to look at it. It's not the type of raid that I'm going to be running over and over. I'm looking forward to the next raid coming out, which is going to be in a couple of weeks. And personally, I'm glad that this raid is done, finished with, and we don't have to look at these boring, sharp, ice crown copy architectured rooms. Hopefully the next raid, from what I've seen so far, it looks different, it looks brighter, it looks more interesting than this raid in general. Every time I raided Sanctum of Domination, I'd be bored halfway through and I just want to leave and get out of there and do something else, go to do some dungeons or go to a different raid. But yeah, I'll wrap it up here. Thank you very much for watching. Next videos will be coming out very soon, and I'll see you soon. Bye.